שמחה של שיר חדש
Okay, should we start?
Yeah.
Okay. First of all, I found a tzitzis factory. So whoever's interested in coming, at 2 o'clock in the afternoon is when all the machines are working. So 2 o'clock in the afternoon seems to be a good time. We need to find out when works for everyone, what day is the best day. So I guess maybe deal with...
Either Monday or Wednesday.
Monday or Wednesday? Okay. We have to discuss the details of the trip, and I guess you'd be in touch with them to work out, the final details.
Make a decision based on majority able to make it.
Okay.
And how people work.
Right. Okay. Fine.
Delicious, Rabbi, delicious.
You let me know when we're live. We're live. We've been live. Okay, that's a bit awkward.
I'm not sure if they're still doing it, but the Chabad place in it's the Ramban Shul down the corner from here. They had volunteering for staying on foot.
No, we're going to a factory. We're going to making the strings. So it comes into the factory as wool, and it comes out as a string. How do they do it? Lishma. It's very, very interesting. Popped in there for a couple of minutes. Interesting vibes. We're going to see that.
Where's Shatnez?
Shatnez is a mashu acher. Yeah. Okay, today we're going to do something different. I want to start off talking about something about the parsha. More specifically, a point to ponder. We're going to ask a question, a moral dilemma, and we're going to find out what the Torah says about it. We're going to ask the question, we're going to discuss it a little bit, then we're going to learn about Hilchos Tzitzis for a while, and then we're going to say the answer at the end of the shir. Gives you time to think about it. We're going to discuss a question about the parasha, and then we're going to discuss it a little bit, and then we're going to go into Hilchos Tzitzis here, and then we're going to say the answer at the end of the shir. In this week's parasha, we have Balak sends a whole load of chosheva advisors and ministers to Bilam to try and persuade him to come and curse Klal Yisrael. And Balak asks Hashem. Hashem says, "Pack it in. This is not what you should be doing." So he sends another load of people, and the lashon pasuk is, he says, "Even if you give me," Bilam says to Balak, "even if you give me all the money in the world, I can't do it. I can't do it." So Rashi points out over here that you see from Bilam's statement, even if you give me all the money in the world, that he had his eye on their money. He knew that really they needed to pay him a good amount and that he wanted it. He said Bilam was chomed mammon, had a chemda for mammon, a strong desire for money. Rashi puts this down very strongly. We see from here Bilam had a strong desire for money. Which brings out the point of chemdas mammon. There's a topic, an idea which is classified as bad, which is a love of money. A love of money. It's something to be explored, but I don't want to explore that point itself. Something similar. How to put business together with the Torah ideals which we all strive for. I'm going to give an example. Give an example, and then we're going to try and understand it a bit better. About 5 years ago, I was married for maybe about 8 months. I came to Eretz Yisrael. I settled down in one of the neighborhoods in Yerushalayim. And we rented a place which the Baal Dira had 2 apartments. One apartment was where we were. It had a bedroom, and then it had a nice size kitchen, dining room, balcony, cute little place. And that was one apartment. The apartment next door was a tzimmer, all in one. So it had a bed, and a little table, a little kitchen area, and a shower, all in one. And ours was a long-term rental, and the one next to us was a short-term rental. So every couple of days, sometimes weeks, sometimes months, we'd have a new person next door. Hi, bye. That's how we lived our life for a couple of months of our married life. One day, a lady moves in next door. We're used to all different types of people moving in. She seemed a regular American lady. She'd come from America, and she told us that her husband they were planning to make Aliyah, and she came earlier. Fine. We got talking to her. We noticed she looks a bit lonely, so we invited her for a Friday night meal. So it was a nice meal. We had a nice time. She was upset with my wife that she'd, put margarine in one of the food she served without telling her. She's like, "It's so good." My wife said, "Yeah, margarine is the secret." Margarine. She wasn't very happy with her. But otherwise, it was a lovely meal. That Friday night happened to be the Friday night before it all happened. If you remember, 5 years ago, just around Purim time, there was talk about some interesting virus that was going on in China, and people were dying left, right, and center. And they were talking that it's beginning to go across the world. That's when the news started trickling in. Purim, people weren't sure. There was some funny songs about Corona. There's a famous song, Charavona, Charavona. So it got changed that year to Corona, Corona. Corona tagi alapo. Anyway, people weren't sure. It was all up in the air. No one knew how it was going to play out. After Purim, it got a bit more serious. We heard that places in Europe are shutting down. So we thought the best idea is, we had a year contract. We took it from the summer. We thought the best is to try and get someone to take our dira. Someone should take our apartment, because maybe we won't be able to get back. We saw airports were shutting. And this lady, her husband was making Aliyah. So she knocked on, she said, "Maybe I can take your dira. If you're not planning on coming back after Pesach, because you're not sure what's going to happen, and you want to, pack up all your boxes because you think you're going to get stuck in England, or going back to England for Pesach, then maybe just give me your dira, sublet the dira to me." Sounded simple. We were happy with that. We were saving the money that we possibly could lose out, which in retrospect it was true. We would have lost out a lot of money. We sat down, we went downstairs to the Baldira, we signed all the papers. She was okay with it. The lady who lived next door to me was okay with it. Everyone was okay. End of meeting. So she was taking it in about 3 weeks, just before Pesach, when her husband is coming. Everything's great. A little later, we get a knock on the door. The lady from next door who was taking our dira knocks on. She says, "You're leaving tomorrow, is that right?" So I said, "Yeah, I'm leaving tomorrow." She said, "No one's in the dira anyway. Can I have it from tomorrow?" So I said, "Sure, if you pay." So she said, "If I pay? You're not here. That's not Erlich." She starts screaming at me. "That's not okay. Why do you need my money? You're not here. You're not losing out. Why can't I have it?" So I said, "We just had a whole meeting downstairs. I'm paying for the dira for the next 3 weeks. It's true I'm not going to be there, but you're taking it for free. We can discuss it. I have to give it to you." She was screaming. She was livid. "It's not okay. It's not yashastig. That's not how Yidden behave." I thought she was crazy. You're laughing. You have to realize we were packing everything in the entire dira that day. The pressure was immense. My wife had someone over to help pack. I didn't know what to do. She knocked on a bit later, saying that I won't really pay for the next. I'm not going to take the dira for the next couple of months if you don't give it to me. Starts threatening me. I said, "What's going on over here?" I was getting a bit. Maybe she's right. Maybe I'm not being ehrlich. Maybe she's right.
How do you behave?
Right. Not only how do you behave, is it? I'm paying for 3 weeks. I'm paying for her to be in my dira. Sounds a little bit crazy. Not only that, I can rent out the dira. We don't know.
Like half price would be a good place to start.
Right. I would think something like that. But how do you get to half price? Say no, and then she kicks up a fuss, and then she says okay. But meanwhile, she was beginning to break down. I was thinking maybe she's a bit unstable. All the pressure with COVID and her husband being stuck across. The question was, I called up a Rav. I said, in business, I broadened the question a little bit, and I made it a broader question about business. Do you say business is business There's a term out there, business is business. Very nice, you're my cousin. Very nice, you're my friend. We're selling something here. Business is business. So I turn around to this lady and I say, Slicha, we had a meeting. We decided what we're doing. If you want to have the dira, pay. Business is business. Or do I say, look, she looks a little bit unstable. She did look a bit unstable. The way she was shouting, what do you say? Who cares?
Yeah. Well, why would you want to do business anyway?
I did business already. I was getting something from it because she was taking it for the 5 months that I would have lost out. I didn't get back until close to the summer.
She signed?
She'd signed.
That's it.
Yeah, of course that's it.
That's the discussion.
Right, it's the end of the discussion.
She can scream what she wants.
Right. So David here says she could scream what she wants. Zagaban. She closed the door. Okay? I hear that. That's how I felt. This is what I asked the rabbi. His answer, and the reason for his answer, we're going to discuss after this. Okay. The question we're going to be discussing today in Hilchos Tzitzis is, can a goy make tzitzis? I don't know if you're aware, but to hire an Arab in this country is way cheaper than hiring a Jew. In lots of countries, sometimes you can't, take a little shtetl, I don't know, take a little place in Switzerland, little community. How many Jews do they have? Let's say a couple of hundred families, maybe less. And this person wants to make tzitzis. He wants to open a factory. So does he have to drive in a whole bunch of Moshelas and Yankelas and Yolis in order to make his factory? Or can he use the local people who are there? It's a big question, this. In Eretz Yisrael, it's a big question because, cheap labor. Arabs are much cheaper. Or do you have to make sure to get a yid? This is the $1 million question which we're going to discuss today. If you have a source sheet, feel free to look inside. If you don't, feel free to space out or listen along. We're going to start with source number 4, just to make it exciting. Chaim, you can pass them around if you like. We're going to start off with source number 4. Source number 4 is the Shulchan Aruch. The Shulchan Aruch discusses this very shaila. Now, note, there are 2 parts of tzitzis which we could be discussing. One part of tzitzis is making the strings. That is tviyah, spinning it in order that you can get from wool into a thread, into a thread. Or we're discussing actually putting in the tzitzis through the hole and making all your knots. Putting tzitzis through the hole and making the knots. Daber el b'nei Yisrael, v'amartu lehem masu lehem tzitzis. The Gemara learns out only a yid can make tzitzis. That means making the knots, putting it through the hole, making an actual tzitzis that we have over here. Doing this, putting it through, that is only a yid can do. That is a Gemara. Daber el b'nei Yisrael, v'amartu lehem masu lehem tzitzis. What about preparing it? What about making the actual string? That is the $1 million question. To put the string through, that's a pasuk. Put it through to make the knot, that's a pasuk already. What about to make the string? To twine the string. Do tviyah. Tviyah is to take it from being a thread, and we're going to see it in the factory, twining it. Okay. Can a guy do that? To explain the shayla a little bit more, it needs to be done l'shma. It has to be done l'shem tzitzis. It can't just be done. Let's have a look at the Shulchan Aruch. Says the Shulchan Aruch, Tovan goy, if a non-Jew does the spinning, does the twining, as we say here, the Yisrael oimad al gabav, and you have a Jew watching, he's on top of him, he's carefully looking at him. V'oiman, he's telling him, Shias l'shma, hello, John, or in this country, Ahmed, do it l'shma, do it l'shem mitzvahs tzitzis. Okay. V'oim Shias l'shma, the Rambam posel, the Rambam says it's posel, or the Harosh kosher, and the Rosh says it's kosher. Okay? You have machlekes rishonim. Shulchan Aruch brings 2 days. If you have a guy doing it by himself, it's very clear here, it's going to be posel. But if you have a yid standing on top of him and telling him, do it l'shma, it's machlekes. The Rambam says it's posel. The Rosh says it's kosher. The Rambam, I didn't bring it in the sources, he quotes a Gemara. The Gemara says a rule, which sounds a little bit mean, but it's not really mean. We're going to see what it means. That a guy does it adaita denafshei. he does it independently. We're going to look into that a bit. The reason why we don't trust the guy when he's doing it lishma, because he does it independently. We're going to have a look at that. Let's have a look at source number 1. This is a Gemara in Gittin. When somebody has to write a get, you have a sofer who's writing a get, it has to be done lishma. This din of lishma applies to many different mitzvahs in the Torah. It applies to matzah, it applies to tefillin, it applies to sefer Torah, many different things. Says the Mishnah, Hakel kishein lichte v'saget. Everyone is kosher to write a get. Anyone can write a get. Afilu cheresh, shoita, for cotton. Someone who's a shoita, someone who's a cotton. They're all kosher to write a get. Okay? Let's go straight to the Gemara, the last line on that box. Frank, the Gemara asks the question, V'halav b'nei deyaninhu. They don't have das. A cheresh, a shoita, and a cotton, they do not have das.
So why the cotton?
A cotton doesn't have das. What does das mean?
So why is it kosher?
Oh, why is it kosher? That's the Gemara's kasha. How can it be kosher? How can it be kosher if they don't have das? Rashi over here says, so that they don't have das. If they don't have das, they can't do a lishma. Das means a mind that you can rely on, right? Lots of times you can have kids, you see it in these contests. They're way, way cleverer than anyone in this room, with your permission, right? You see sometimes these whizzes. You can have a 9-year-old who knows maths, and you tell him what's 180 times 3 billion, I don't know what. They come out with it in seconds. What does it mean he doesn't have das? So my Rabbi Shimshi Bloch, he says that the idea of not having das means they don't have das is like a maturity. You can't rely on them. He's like, you can have a 9-year-old boy who's a very mature, responsible person, but all of a sudden his sibling will do something and he'll turn around and give him a slap, right? So no adult would do that. They don't have what you can rely on. They don't have a backing. If a kid says he'll do something, he might be very smart, he might be a very clever person, but they don't have das. Das is a stronger maturity. It's a maturity. Okay, that's what das means. They don't have das. Omer of Huna, and here it goes into a number 2. This is where the Gemara goes into number 2. V'hu, it's in the Gemara is in the middle. V'hu shahoya gadol oimot al gabov. You know when you have a cotton and a cheresh and a shoita making the get, when you have a gadol standing on top of him. Supervising. You're making sure he's doing it lishma. Says the Gemara, Amalei Rav Nachman Elameata over Kachavim v'Yisrael Omer the Gab of Hachinami de Kasha. If you can have someone standing on top of someone who cannot write a get, and if you have someone standing on top of it, it's okay. Can a guy write it? Maybe we can have a guy to write a get. Maybe. Says the Gemara, V'chitema Hachinami. You're going to say that it does work. For Tanya, it says in the Brisa, over Kachavim puzzle. Over Kachavim is puzzle. A guy cannot write a get. So you see this magic trick of having somebody standing on top of him doesn't work. Says the Gemara, Ovid Kachavim adaited nafshei Ovid. A guy, a non-Jew, does it on his own mind. Adaited nafshei. He goes, he doesn't do it according to what the Yid tells him. Let's look at Rashi. What does that mean? Says Rashi, Ladaited nafshei Ovid. What does it mean? Says Rashi, the Hog Gadol, who he is an adult, v'yesh boy das, and he has das. Even though the Yid who's standing on top of him is saying, John, make sure you do this lishma, and he says, okay, man, I'm going to do it lishma. He says, even though shezeh oimelokein, he tells him, maybe he's decided in his head to do it for something else. I don't know. Maybe he doesn't. He's a responsible adult. We don't really need to listen to this Jew who's telling me what to do. So he tells him to do it lishma, but really he's not doing it lishma. That's the issue here. Aval cotton, somebody who is a minor, ein boy das, el metzaveo. He doesn't have das only for what the person tells him. So if you have a child and an adult tells him to do something, his das is on what the adult does. He doesn't have enough independence and strength to say, I'm doing it for something else. If he tells him he's doing it for something, zeh. That's what the Gemara says. And the Rambam goes with this. The Rambam says, even if you have somebody standing on top of him, and standing on top of a guy, it doesn't make a difference. The Rosh seems to say otherwise. Now, the very exciting thing about today is we're going to learn Rabbi Akiva Eiger. Not only that, this Rabbi Akiva Eiger asked a bomb question. Hopefully somebody in this room is going to ask the question. The Rosh says what he says. He's not talking about tzitzis, but the Beis Yosef, the Shulchan Aruch, decides that the Rosh, we can take the Rosh and apply it to tzitzis. That what the Rosh says applies to tzitzis. And we're going to see if that is possible. What does the Rosh say? Let's have a look at source number 3. The Rosh is discussing the halachas of Sefer Torah. Halachas of Sefer Torah. You know, we see when you do Hagbah, you can see a Sefer Torah, looks very nice. The klaf, the actual parchment, comes straight off a cow. There's a long process in order to make it into the nice parchment it looks. Part of the process is you take off the skin and you have to do something called ibud. Work it somehow. And the way you do that is you put it in lime. It's called sid. And you sit it in a barrel of lime for a couple of weeks, and eventually the hair falls off, it softens it. I think it also makes it strong as well. I think it softens it, that's the main thing. And the hair falls off, and then they can get on with the next process. It's a whole process. The first process is called ibud. Ibud has to be done lishma. Has to be done l'shem kedushas Sefer Torah, for the mitzvah of Sefer Torah, to write a Sefer Torah. So, Rabbeinu Baruch discusses, can a guy do ibud? Let's have a look. In source number 3, this is right at the end of the first line. V'kosav harav Baruch, zeich levracha. Reb Baruch writes, if a guy is doing the ibud, he is doing the soaking in this lime. And the Yisrael is watching on top of him and he is helping him. Yesh by mamish, that would work. A guy does it on the das of Yisrael. More than a kuti, we're not going to go into that. Right? Says the Rosh that by ibud, when you put the sid onto the, it's called hide. It's called a hide, am I right? Yeah, the skin that they've taken off. What do you say? Yeah, you're turning it into a klaf through putting the sid on it. That you can do. What are you doing? What? You have to stretch it out. Yeah. I don't know at what stage they do it all. Don't know if the sid is before and the stretching out. Forgive me, we're not doing a Sefer Torah now. I don't know the order exactly. But I know that the first part is you're putting it in lime. Says the Rosh, he quotes Rabbeinu Baruch, if you have a guy doing it, you got your John, you got your Ahmed, and there's a Yisrael who's standing on top of him and he's helping him a little bit, he's put in here, you have to help him a little bit, then you're good to go. Now, we just saw Gemara in Gittin. What did Gemara in Gittin say? Can you get a guy to write a get? What does the Gemara say? Matamel? Can you get a guy? No! The Gemara says no! What's the Rosh saying over here? For Ibud you can do it. In order to work the leather, a guy could do it, but by Gittin not. You know who asked the question? The Rosh. The Rosh asked the question. The Rosh in the small writing now. It's in the first line. Ve'afal gav. And even though the Beksivas get, when you're writing a get, Amrin and the Gemara says, a guy does it for his own interest. He doesn't do it for what the Yi tells him. But Perik based the Gittin. In the Perik based the Gittin, we just saw this Gemara. V'ha Rambam Zal, and then he quotes the Rambam, who paskins like that. Posak im ibdun oivik, if a guy does the ibud, psulin, it's possible. It's possible. Even though he told him to do the ibud for Sefer Torah, or l'shem tefillin, or if it's for tefillin, he told him to do for tefillin. Because the guy does it for himself. So how could Rabbeinu Baruch tell you that by ibud it's okay, The Gemara says that a guy does it for his own interest. He doesn't do it a guy does it for his own interest. He doesn't do it for the Jews' interest. John's doing it. He doesn't care what Yankila told him. Do it l'shem tzitzis. I tell you, you need to do it l'shem tzitzis. He'll do it for his own thing. But Rabbeinu Baruch says, for ibud, in order to make the hide soft, then it's okay. It's against the Gemara. $1 million question. Says the Rosh, a difference. Let's have a look at the difference very carefully. V'nohagu ha'am, a little bit further on the end of the line. V'nohagu ha'am, the people are nohig. We take on, Rabbeinu Baruch, like Rabbeinu Baruch says the Rosh. You can do it like Rabbeinu Baruch. You don't have Jewish laborers in all places. As I said, you can have a little shtetl, and the only professional place to make string is, here we're not talking about making string, we're talking about to work a hide. So let's take a little shtetl in the olden days. I know what's a good shtetl, good name of a place in Lithuania and Ukraine and Germany. I don't know, Ger. Let's imagine Ger. It was full of Jews then. Oh, you've got to go back many years. And there's only one place that works leather in the entire place. To set up your own, you want to make a Sefer Torah, to set up they didn't have flights that you can just fly in some leather from Eretz Yisrael, from America. There was no such thing. Says the Rosh, they don't always have Jewish laborers. You couldn't always open a factory. So says the Rosh, we're Somech and Rabbeinu Baruch. But we still haven't answered the question. Says the Rosh. V'chein hadas machraz. You know, the das, the logic lends itself to Rabbeinu Baruch. Why? The beget, by getting where the Mishnah, where the Gemara says that a guy does it for his own interest, the be'ina shicht of kol ha-Torah if I get the Shema. There's a long letter which you have to write for a get. There's many, many words. So, but every single word has to be l'shem l'shma. Has to be l'shem this gerushin, for this divorce. Every single word. Now that can take a long time. A sofer, he has to dip it into his ink and write it on the parchment very carefully. It could take him half an hour, maybe longer. I don't know how long it takes to write again. So for that, we understand that he does it for his own interests. Says the Rosh, Avol be'ibud, when it comes to ibud, lo be'ina nelatchilas ha'ibud. All you need is the beginning of the ibud. Kishayosim ha'or, when you put the leather b'toich hasid inside the line, sheyay ma'oz, that he should say then, ani oisel l'shem sefer Torah. I'm doing it for sefer Torah. For Oz, and then Yasa over Chum L'das Yisrael. Then the guy puts it in and he does it. Al Das Yisrael. When he tells him to do it. Says the Rosh the difference, very simple difference. He says, I think Pshat's like Rabbeinu Baruch. Why is Pshat like Rabbeinu Baruch? Because by getting, it takes you half an hour to write a get. So you have this Yankelo who's standing on the side, you say, hello, do l'shma. He says, yeah, sure, no problem. He writes it. He's got half an hour. For half an hour, he daydreams, he decides that he's writing it for a movie, he's decided that he's writing it to his own wife who he's going to divorce. I don't know what he's deciding in the middle, right? He can decide anything in half an hour. But when it comes to ibud, how long does it take to put it inside a barrel? 2 seconds? So he tells the do l'shma, plop. Then he's decided to do something else. Says the Rosh, don't worry. We can pass like Rabbeinu Baruch by ibud. Clear? Is the difference clear? By get, it's a long time. If it's a long time, then the guy can do it for his own reasons. But if it's a quick one, just to put it inside sid and put it inside some lime, that we can rely on a guy to do. That's what the Rosh says. Now, this is what the Rosh says. The Rosh doesn't mention tzitzis once. Doesn't talk about tviyah. The Beis Yosef, when he writes the Shulchan Aruch, he says, Laharash kasha. The Rosh holds that when you're doing tviyah, when you're spinning, twining a wool fabric and making it into a chut, making it into a string, the Rosh says it's kasha. Where's the Rosh? It's this Rosh. Tell me, if you had this Rosh and somebody would ask you, can you make tzitzis? From this Rosh, what would you say? You have to think yourself now. would you think that this Rosh is a good comparison to say that by tzitzis, in order to do tviyah, a guy can do it? No. The Rosh says, by getting where it takes a long time, then you don't say a guy will do it for what the Yid says. But if just, what?
But if you're going to drop it
If just dropping it in, just to put it inside the barrel of Sid, that we do say he's doing Lishma. How long does it take to do Tviyah? How long does it take? Or a person says he doesn't know.
20 or so.
How long?
About 20 minutes.
20 minutes. Any other suggestions?
A little while.
A little while. That's what I would think. Says Rabbi Akiva Eiger, what is going on over here? How can the Beis Yosef have the audacity to say that the Rosh can be used also for Hilchos Tzitzis? Tzitzis takes a long time. How can you do that? They're two different things. This is the question of Rabbi Akiva Eiger. The Dogel Meravav also asks this question. Abon Bekasha. How can you say that the Rosh can be used for Tzitzis? If you're just dropping it inside lime, that takes a second. But it seems to me to take wool and to intertwine it in order to come out with a thread takes a while. Akiva Eiger says, "V'tzarech Ian." He doesn't have an answer. Doesn't have an answer. This is the $1 million question. And the Mechaber, the Beis Yosef, brings it down to Shulchan Aruch. Baruch Hashem, we have the Chavetz Chaim. The Chavetz Chaim wrote a beautiful sefer called the Mishnah Brura. And at the side of the Mishnah Brura, he wrote a sefer called the Bia Halacha. And the Bia Halacha, he discusses all the big questions in life. One of the big questions in life is this Rabbi Akiva Eiger. How can the Beis Yosef use this Rosh? And the Bia Halacha seems to say something, it's based on a Vilna Gaon, that says that if you look at the exact wording of the Rosh, this is where the Rabbi Akiva Eiger's question comes from. Kiven de berega nasis, since it's done in a rega, rega. What does rega mean? Like a moment. Rega sounds like a moment. And tviyah, even if you want to say the guy's really good at it and he's doing it really quickly, it's not a moment. What? Many moments. So says the Bia Halacha, after discussing the way the Vilna Gaon sees the Rosh, he says that when it says berega, the Rosh doesn't mean literally berega. This time which we give a goy to decide that he's doing it for a different reason, you can stretch it a little. The Rosh doesn't mean literally a moment. That's not what he means. He means a short amount of time. That's what he means. That's what the Bia Halacha wants to explain the way the Beis Yosef sees it. It doesn't mean a split second like it, like you drop it inside the barrel, it's a split second. That's not what it means. It means a small amount of time. But says the Mishnah Brura, if it's taking a long time, we're going to see in this factory, when the way they make tviyah, if they're making a long string, it could take a while. He says if it's taking them a long time, it doesn't work. A goy cannot do it. So when you see inside this the Mechaber that he says according to the Rosh it's kosher, the Mishnah Brura says that it's only when it takes a short amount of time. It doesn't mean a moment. When the Rosh says berega, it doesn't mean a moment. It means, a short amount of time, maybe a minute, 2 minutes, a couple of minutes, I don't know exactly. It just doesn't mean a long time. If you look inside the Mishnah Brura, when he explains the Shulchan Aruch, this is in source number 6, the final source, Oimel del Gaboy, a Yid is watching what our Goy is doing. I am Bevei Halacha, look in the Bia Halacha, which I just quoted, Shekosavnu, where we wrote, the Dafke imat tviyah einin sheches kol kach. It's only if the tviyah, the spinning, doesn't take a long time, it doesn't drag on so long. Aval imat tviyah nimsheches man harba, if the tviyah takes a long time, oz nira, it appears that fila la rosh, even according to the Rosh, loy mahani b'ma shelimed la'ovid gelulim b'tchilas tviyah sheyas l'shma. It will not help the fact that a Yid was standing there and telling the guy to do it l'shma. So, bottom line, what is the bottom line? Bottom line is if you want John, if you want Ahmed to work in your factory, the only way it's going to work is if you're standing over him and it's taking him a very short amount of time. He can make this string in a very short amount of time. If it's taking longer than a minute, a couple of minutes, get out. It doesn't work because we see. What do you say?
I'll get my words out. If you can't do it within that specified time, then
Yeah, you have.
technology
Doesn't have the time to play around.
He's relying on the other guy, and he's not.
Yeah,
That's not the way that works.
that's right. There is a deeper way of explaining why is it a longer time. That's what you're touching on, Lawrence, right? Why is it a longer time he messes around and a shorter time, a couple of minutes, is he still going? There's tifa Torahs, there's deep Torahs about this, but we're not. What?
That's kind of. Remember that in the shoot.
Right. That's right. It's a similar type of svara. But at the moment, let's keep it simple. If it takes a long time, a goy cannot do it. If it takes a short amount of time, according to the Rosh, it's kosher. The Mishnah Berurah says the might it's machlekas. The Rambam says even then it's possible. So he says try and get Jewish laborers. If you're mamish stuck, you can get goyish laborers and make sure it's done in a very short amount of time. That is hilchos tzitzis. I hope we're clear on that. If we mitzvah we go to the tzitzis factory, you will see they are all Jewish, very much Jewish. Now,
What about matzah? Can a goy do matzah?
can a goy do matzah?
Can he pour the water? Can he put it in the
I think I might, if I'm not mistaken,
matzah mitzvah.
it has to be lishma, correct. It might be matzah's more chomo.
The oven is a problem because of the Spartan, they won't be able to put it in the oven. Is it quite because there's no chance they can.
Because of
The Spartan can't.
Bishalakam. Ah, what's this? Oh, he's saying as well, you have to make sure it's done properly. You don't know if a guy is doing it properly. I think also there might be something else in making matzah that it has to be. I don't know.
Specified time. Because,
Yeah. Right, but I don't know. That's a good question. It's a good question. Is matzah the same as here? I don't know. I'm gonna have to look into it. Mitzvah Shem, we'll get back to you about that. Let's wrap up the discussion which we started off with. Does Midas come into business? Do we say business is business? Or do we say, poor lady, she is so, she literally looked unstable. I think it's okay, just take the apartment. I asked this to my Rav. And as I said, I broadened the shaila. I said, in business in general, I was a young man and hadn't done in business. I said, do you, maybe just in business in general, you say business is business. You have a worker who's not coming on time. You say, get out of it. I told you come on time, get out of it. Or do you say, have a bit of rachmanas, poor guy. Maybe he's not feeling well. Maybe he's going through something. Where does it?
Maybe that's the way how he thinks about you.
What do you mean?
That's how he thinks about you. The guy you employ.
What do you mean?
Just that. You feel sorry for him, he's feeling sorry for you.
All right, maybe he should do that to you. Right, this is part of the question. How do we approach business? So the Rav said to me like this. This rabbi spends a lot of time fundraising as well. He has a couple of institutions. And he said, I know many, many rich men. And he said, the rich men who approach business with the business as business type of approach, they're not the type of people you want to spend in your leisurely time with. They're generally, it's toughened them up. Tesco has a line, every little helps, every penny counts. Every little helps. There's a different one which came out for a while. Count your pennies, the pounds will add up themselves. These types of things. If you go with a very rigid approach to business, it ends up spilling over to your regular life. When people slight you slightly, only a little bit, you used to, business is business. So it ends up spreading over to your entire life. So this Rav said to me, he said, Aryeh, relax a bit. He said, are you really going to rent out the apartment in the next 3 weeks? Probably not. Look, she looks unstable. It's one thing if she's like a normal person and she's just saying, please, business is business. But there was a reason to have Rahman say. He said, you won't lose out. You won't lose out. Go for it. This is a Marmokim. This is a place. How do you say this in English? This is something not to forget. In the first Seif in Shulchan Aruch, the entire, right at the beginning of Orach Chaim, starts off, Yiskabek Ha'ari, you should get up like a lion in order to serve Hashem. The Ramah there discusses how you should serve Hashem. He says you should remember only Hashem's in front of you. And don't get bothered by other people. Sometimes, in order to do something that's right, in order to do a mitzvah, you look a bit like a fool. Sometimes it's like that. I don't know. It happens in various different times. Let's say someone wants to do a long Shemona Esrei. He's had a hard day. I mean, it's awkward. Let's say he wants to cry to Hashem. He wants to cry. He has something on his heart. How many people cry in shul? Very few. And when you do, people look at him and like, shut up. Yeah. It's like uncomfortable. The Ramah says over here, he says, if you want to do the right thing, if you're doing a mitzvah, you're doing the right thing, his words are like this. V'loy yispayish mipnei b'nei Adam. Don't be embarrassed of people who are making fun of you in your avodas Hashem. Don't take any notice. Right? It's a tough one. Everyone according to their level. Everyone's got their mitzvah, which is a bit awkward to do in some situations. The Mishnah Berurah here quotes the Beis Yosef, which says a rule which is very similar to what we said now. And I will quote. He's going on not to be embarrassed. He says like this, I'll call upon him, however, don't get into a fight with them. Yeah? So let's say, I don't know, he's in a place where it's awkward to wear a kapel. Yeah? It's awkward to wear a yarmulke, to walk around with a yarmulke. I know there's some places in the world where they find it embarrassing. Only walk around with a cap. Now this guy, he lost his cap, so he's wearing a yarmulke. He had the yarmulke in his pocket. And he thinks it's the right thing, and they think it's not the right thing. He says, don't be embarrassed, and says to Mishmur, don't get into a fight with him. Why? The midah, the trait of azus, brazenness, to have, to come out very strongly in your face. That's a good one. Azus is in your face. That's good. Maguna mu'oid. It's very, very bad. Don't use it at all. Afilu ba'avodas Hashem yisbarach. Even for avodas Hashem. Why? Ki yikne kinyan b'nafshoy. You will acquire a kinyan in your heart. Lias az. To be brazen. To be in your face. Afilu shaloi b'makom avodas Hashem. Even when it's not avodas Hashem. Says the Mishnah Berurah. When it comes to avodas Hashem, do not use. People say, so why are you wearing a kappa? So you stand up, you say, what do you mean? You start shouting them. Don't do that. Why? Because in order to do that, you have to use a midah which is brazen, it's sharp, it's like that. And that type of midah, it's not good. Because very nice in avodas Hashem, it's a good thing. You're meant to be like that. But if you use it in avodas Hashem, you'll end up using it in your daily life. The same is for business. If you're tough in business, of course, to a certain extent, you do have to be tough in business. But mit a bissel rachmunus, with a bit of Yiddish hat, you have to put it in there. The Beit Halacha over here says, of course, if it's somebody's, you have to know when. Sometimes there's people like that scholar before the war. There were many people who were trying to get communities to loosen their avodas Hashem. He says, of course, and sometimes you have to be strong. In the general, when you're doing a mitzvah by yourself, don't get carried away. So we should all be zeicha to do business with rachmunus, remembering our end goal to make money in the right way, and yeah. What?